How many of you saw the Yankees-Red Sox game last night? Oh my. So you don't really know. It went 16 innings. 16? I'm usually wrong about these things, but this was 16. 16 innings. And if you're like me, and you love the Yankees, but you love the Red Sox even more, you kind of knew that the Yankees were going to win. In the 10th inning, the 11th inning, the 12th inning, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th inning, you knew the Yankees were going to win. The Yankees almost always win. The government almost always wins, too. Last night's game against the Red Sox showed the Yankees' budget and bench, and you knew it was going to happen. Every now and then the underdog wins, but mostly the underdog loses, and that's why we call the underdog the underdog. It's kind of normal. The Yankees, in the 114 years that the World Series has been played, have won 27 of the World Series. Now, that's not a perfect score, but baseball is not a microwave kind of game. It goes slowly over time, especially after 16 innings last night. The next closest team is the St. Louis Cardinals, who won 11 World Series. So the Yankees usually win. Thank you, thank you. You could even say that the government and the Yankees are somewhat similar in the way they always win. And you could even say that sometimes when the government wins, it wins on your side too. Like when Lyndon Johnson finally figured out how to pass civil rights legislation. When this Congress finally figures out how to get single-payer health care. It's just around the corner. That would be a win, though, right? Wouldn't it be a win? And it is likely, though, in terms of our week this week and Jean Montreville's check-in, it is likely that the government will win. This has been an absolutely terrible week for immigrants and their rights. I can't remember a worse one. On Thursday, we had a wonderful Jericho walk with Jean supporting him, and found out that another Haitian, Natasha, whom we had also been supporting, was taken. And now we know that she is in Bergen County Jail, very, very ill, very, very troubled, very, very scared, no resources left because she came on a boat from Haiti here. And you know, if you're brave enough to come on a boat across that ocean to this country, you have different legal rights, which is to say fewer than somebody who came another way. Now that's the government for you. We also lost another person whom we had been supporting even after we finally got Congress people to call ICE, and ICE would not take their phone calls. We haven't been able to get our own elected officials to do very much for Jean, but we did get something in this other man's situation. And ICE doesn't care enough about New York Congress people to talk to them. We also found out on Monday when some of our accompaniers went to Federal Plaza to the 9th floor, many of you have done accompaniment, we found out that we will no longer be allowed, or it appears that we will no longer be allowed because we weren't allowed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, in to accompany people because, quote, the room is too crowded with people watching what they're doing in our name using our taxes. We have engaged a very willing ACLU to help us on this issue of being able to get in. They'll be here tomorrow. There'll be a talk, conference, and we will look at remedies to that. News has also arrived that literally thousands of Haitians are going to be deported in the next several weeks. We don't think Jean has a very good chance. So the question presents itself not just regarding Jean, I'm going to talk about that some more later, and so is Jane during Joys and Concerns. The question arises rather quickly, why bother playing against the Yankees? Why? Why bother? They almost always win. So I'm going to try to give you a few reasons from a somewhat saddened heart. I hope I can do this. You know, I love that song, Amy, because it always reminds me of the thing that most people show up in a pastor's office, that one of the first things most people say when they show up in your office is, it felt like a really good idea at the time. And you say, uh-huh. I guess so. So where are we now? Where are we now? I'm going to give you a few reasons. So see which one you like best. Many of you know, because I brag about it all the time, that my son Jacob is a world-class Frisbee player, or was a world-class Frisbee player, and now is a world-class Frisbee coach, because his knees gave out. It was all that praying he did as a child. And we have talked for a long time about how he kept himself going for so long in the game, because frankly, he didn't win that many championships. He lost so many championships by 1 point. It was incredible. It was one after the other in Hawaii and all around the world. 1-pointers he would lose. How do you keep going, Jacob? And he always said, and I almost believe him, I almost don't too, that he had a very personal way of judging, which was not wins, but throws against turns. That basically means whether you advance your disc down the field or you threw it in such a way that somebody else got it and they got points going that way. If you threw it, you got points for somebody having caught it, but if you threw it out, you lost all those points. And Jacob was a thrower, and he threw it out a lot. And a lot of people caught the disc when he threw it too. His ratio of successful throws to turns was the way he defined his personal best. And that was how he kept score as an athlete. Sometimes we play the game against the people we think are likely to win in order to achieve our personal best. Justice for immigrants is not a game, but there's an analogy to the work we do. St. Paul would understand in this world-famous text about human nature, in Paul's letters to the Romans, winners of a certain kind themselves, by the way, we get a very interesting point of view on our personal best. The good that I would do, I don't. The evil that I would not do, I do. What is wrong with me? Am I wretched? Am I in charge? Who am I anyway? You know, it sounded like a really good idea at the time. Paul argues that you are both of those people. And maybe you understand. Have you ever felt that way at the end of a day? When again, the novel was not written or even looked at, and the dinner was not cooked, and you forgot to pick up the cat litter, and your mother wants to know why you didn't call. The noble projects that I would do, I do not, and the ignoble errands that I would not do, I do. Pattern recognition is what we call this pretty daily business. We recognize the pattern of our missing the mark of our true humanity. And that is my definition of sin. We miss the mark of our true humanity. God calls us to our personal best, to our true humanity, and we can't remember where the cat litter is that we did think we did pick up. And so when we miss the mark of our true humanity, we resolve to have better aim. We wake up the next day, and our mother is still wondering why we didn't call. And so we skip yoga, don't write the novel again, and call her. We return. We try again. We throw a good disc instead of throwing it out or having it intercepted. The great American novel languishes in our computer, wondering why we didn't write it also. And it feels like everybody is playing a tune on your piano but you. It feels like you're being played. Did you hear those texts, the modern texts? That you're being played. That so many people are calling your name, but they're not the people you want to talk to. You want to talk to the godly in you, to the good in you, to the good that you would do and you do not. St. Paul makes a fascinating case for the recognition of this pattern, and he comes up with one of the most sophisticated excuses of all. He says, I find it a law. Then when I want to do what is good, evil lies close at hand. Have you ever said about a person that her gifts are very close to her flaws? Or noticed in yourself that what you are really good at has the opposite to do with what you do badly? Have you ever recognized the pattern when people say to you, the worst thing that ever happened to me was actually the best thing that ever happened to me? And the best thing that ever happened to me was actually the worst thing that ever happened to me. Have you ever noticed that pattern, how closely things lie to each other, almost like they're in twin beds in the same room of one person? Now, our congregation has been very involved in a meritorious way in the immigration movement. As of yesterday's summer board meeting, thank you all for coming, we are going to become more resolute in another project in our work against racism. Why? Because we want to. Why? Because some of us really, really want to. Why? Because we have had a successful project that Christine and TJ led, and it's not enough to touch the harm and the hurt and our own complicity in the harm and the hurt. And while there are overlaps between the issues facing immigrants and the oppression of African Americans, they are distinct. In both cases, there is the whiteness thing, which matters. It does not matter. It matters. Here at Judson, we remain a white congregation despite increasing participation by people of color. We want to examine that whiteness, and also we want to do our personal best to head towards the beloved community. Now, how do these things connect? They connect because there is more facing us as we even get more defeated. There are also people running around here planning a conference on drug sanctuary and how do you be more stigma-free. There are people demanding that we do more and more and more here, even as many of us are feeling a little crushed and wondering, now, why would the people of God do something like that? Why would you do that? So I believe, and not everybody, with St. Paul, that we are expanding our mission while failing at some of our missions because we don't believe that more work will win the battle. more grace will win the battle. We believe that more relationship with suffering and less denial of suffering will be more strategic and help us, the Judson congregation, to do our personal best. More relationship with suffering, not more victories. The time management people would know what to do. They'd say Schindler's List was a crappy movie. Sell 9 of your cars and save 93 Jews, or however many the numbers were. Remember what the hero in that movie said? I could have sold 1 more car and saved 60 more. He was willing to enter the suffering of other people who were not his own, and not to enter the suffering heroically, like a New York Yankee, but to enter the suffering humbly, like a Boston Red Sox. Back to St. Paul. He delights in the law of God in his inmost self. He hears its tune in the deep inner piano of himself, the tune that's trying to get out, where he's not being played, but playing. And he also sees in his own members that there is another law at war with him. He throws the disc and somebody intercepts it. Worse, instead of throwing the disc at someone who could catch it, he throws it at somebody who can't catch it. He throws it over their head. He is his own worst problem. He knows how to throw beautifully, and yet he throws badly. Paul's solution is a theologically interesting excuse and throws us out into the field of a weird theology. His solution is a deep doubleness. With my mind, I am a slave to the law of God, and with my flesh, I am a slave to the law of sin. His solution is personal honesty. I'm a failure. I'm no good. Or I'm not as good as I want to be. There are parts to me, and one is dedicated to God, and the other is dedicated to something else, something I don't even know what it is. Now, I know you queer theologians are all thinking, look at that Pauline binary sitting there. Look at that, flesh and spirit, mind and soul. But Paul is not saying that. He is saying there is a deep, dense doubleness to me. I am both of these things. I'm a winner and a loser. I am wretched and I'm extraordinary. He's saying that. It's like what physicists say to us, that one of the most remarkable things about the human body is that the great mass of living things is just every cell carrying the complete genetic blueprint for the entire organism. It's all there at the same time. So if we lose Jean this week, and watch that language, that is terrible, unchristian language. Did you hear it? We lose Jean. Who died and appointed us God? If Jean is detained or deported this week, it will not be because of their power or our weakness. It will be because our personal best wasn't good enough to win this game this time. I know Gene would agree with me. He's not here today yet. And say, you've done your personal best, and it wasn't good enough. And my God, we know we will say to him, Gene, you have done your personal best. And it's not good enough yet. And by the grace of God, not by our success or our failure, by the grace of God, Gene will be all right wherever he is, and his children will be all right wherever he is. The real winning we will need to do will be to engage in a competition of forgiveness with each other, because we are going to feel so wretched. So wretched. So why do we play the game even though we are often losers? To practice, to have better aim, to miss fewer of the marks of our true humanity, or because we read Danny Catch's lovely essay about why bad governments happen to good people. Danny Catch is an activist and a humorist who says people often don't know the difference. I really don't know what's going to happen this week, and I hope that my pessimism does not prevail. And if it does, I hope we will think about our personal best. I hope we will not overdo ourselves and become so self-important that we think it was all up to us in the first place. I hope we will have some humility. And I hope we will do more, not less. More, not less. Amen.